All right, what's going on? It's a cold, snowy February day, and today we are taking a look at the hydraulic system on this Scag Turf Tiger. Earlier this summer, the thrust bearing on the right side pump decided to leave the chat. Shot a bunch of metal through the system, contaminated probably everything on that side. So today we have got a nice shiny new Hydro Gear pump and a brand new Parker wheel motor that we're going to be putting in this thing. Before we do that though, we got to get the old one off and we got to clean out everything that we are reusing, which isn't much actually. I got new hydraulic lines built for the high pressure. These are ready to go, brand new. And I've got a bunch of 3/8 hose for all the low pressure lines. It's probably overkill. I would imagine we could just clean those out. And I've read online that you can clean those out, but I figured with, you know, expensive new parts going in, it's cheap insurance to throw some new hoses at it. Really the only thing we're using from before for that side is the cooler, which is downstream of all the expensive stuff. So I'm actually not too worried about that. So we are kind of stepping into this mid project. I've already done some removal. We took the pump off, we took the wheel off, and then we took the pump off already. But there's not too much to the pump removal. Just the pulley back here, currently hanging down there. And then there's just a bolt on the top, a bolt on the bottom that hold the pump in place. So yeah, we're gonna start off with getting this wheel motor off. And to do that, we gotta pull this wheel hub off, which could be challenging. I've hit it a couple times with PB Blast over the past few days, so hopefully it's not too bad. We're gonna find out. All right, got our 3-jaw puller here, 1/2-inch impact. Let's see if this can do the trick here. All right, we just tighten up all of these real quick. They kept backing off, starting to annoy me. Let's try again. Gee, you don't want to go. There she blows. That took some coaxing, but there we go. All right, let's get these off. All right, should be. Huh. Wasn't even hooked up. That's part of my brake, maybe? That's always fun. There we go. Wheel motor removed. I've done a lot of reading leading up to this project. There's a lot of different schools of thoughts as to whether you should replace the wheel motor and the pump at the same time. And I opted to do both just because I found a great deal on a used Parker. But I've seen people saying you can get away with just doing the pump. Apparently the wheel motors are a little more hardy than the pumps are. But I had some pretty serious metal throughout the system, so I figured just play it safe. So there's my old and my new wheel motor. They're not identical actually. They are slightly different model numbers, I believe. I think they'll be compatible, I hope. When I was reading, I think all the important stuff is the same, so it should work for this. And same story for the pump too. It's not identical to the one I took off of it, but it was listed as compatible. So next, we gotta remove these fittings. We got a few fittings from this as well that we gotta move over to this. And we're gonna make sure we scope these, clean out all the metal that could be inside, make them look nice and new before we move them on to our nice new expensive parts. There it goes. So fun fact, the only difference between a normal socket and an impact socket is, and we'll get our fittings off of this. I think before we start cleaning those up, like I said, I got new 3/8 hose for all of this stuff. So I think we'll go ahead and maybe replace those real quick. We're gonna take some pictures of what it looks like currently. I have looked at a lot of diagrams for this, so I do know where the hydraulic lines are supposed to go. But I'm gonna take pictures anyway. And then we'll get those old hoses off of there, kind of get the new ones in place. So next, I think we're gonna go ahead and get this reservoir removed, because that is absolutely full of metal right now. We want to get that nice and cleaned out as best we can. Doesn't have to be perfect, because the very first place that goes is our filter block. It goes through a filter which would take out any metal or contaminants that are in the fluid before it goes to the pumps. So doesn't have to be spotless, but there's a lot of metal in there. Might even be impeding the flow at this point. So we'll take this off, we'll clean it off as best we can. We'll get all of these hoses off of there as well. Then I think we'll be ready to start building instead of taking apart, which is always exciting. So let's get this reservoir off. Now I'm very curious what we're going to find in here. Obviously we're going to find some metal. I'm curious how much. Remove our filler tube. There's some fluid. Some shiny fluid. Very shiny fluid. There's a couple of chunks in there. So far not as bad as I thought. But that is definitely some glittery hydraulic fluid, which you don't want. I can't tell if the bad stuff is just sticking to the bottom of the reservoir. I'm gonna put a light down there and see. No, it's actually not too bad. I mean, there's definitely some metal sludge in the bottom, but there's no big chunks like I thought there'd be. So the plan is to use diesel fuel to clean this all out. Anything I'm gonna be cleaning, just flush it with some diesel fuel, making a mess. We'll probably just put some in here, see if I can cap these off somehow. Cap it, shake it up a couple of times, rinse and repeat until we've got, you know, some cleanliness here. Alright, so we got a little diesel fuel in here. Just a splash. Some of that sludge in the bottom, ideally. I don't want any of that. Just to see what we got going on. Again, not as bad as I thought. Still more metal coming out, but not terrible. Definitely still some glitter in there, but it's actually looking better. So we'll hit it with another one. Definitely still some metal in there, and it's probably, you know, it's gonna stay that way to some extent. I'm not gonna be able to get everything out. Well, that's certainly helping. Here's a little bit of what we're dealing with here. There's a lot of metal in there. Mostly little stuff, but there's some, you know, it looks like this is mostly just glitter. Well, that was a dumb place to put my camera. I'm afraid my flimsy tripod is no more, but that's okay. I'd rather that break than my nice camera. So anyway, I was just finishing up clearing out the metal from this reservoir. So I'll just keep doing that, and then we'll jump back into replacing the hoses. All right, we're gonna try a little experiment here. I've got this thing mostly cleaned out. There's some stubborn glitter hanging around in there. So I bought these ceramic magnets for this project, actually. These reservoirs don't come with any magnets in them, and I've seen people online recommending gluing a few to the outside of it somewhere to kind of catch metal particles as they come through the system. So I have these, and I'm gonna put them on the reservoir, but I figured, why not try dropping one in here and then flushing it around with the diesel fluid and see how much metal it can pick up. Should be easy to find out. We are going to call that a great success. As you can see, this magnet is pretty well covered in metal, so we definitely took a little more out of the system. Win. Okay, this is more of a win than I thought. Let's see if we can see this. Kind of tough to see on the camera, but previously the walls were coated in glitter and they are like spotless now. There's only a couple of little bits on the bottom still. And at the end of the day, a little bit's not a big deal. So that's looking pretty good. I'll probably do one more flush with diesel, maybe with the magnet. That seemed to work really well, and then we'll call it good. All right, after a second flush with the magnet, picked up some more metal. Some of that's from running around the cap as well. There's barely any in there at this point. There's just a couple of little flakes on the bottom, and I'm not worried about those because these are going to create some more flakes as they break in, and the filter's going to catch all that. So we're going to call that clean. So next up, we'll clean out all these fittings and make sure these fittings are good to go too. And then we'll start removing hoses, and then we'll probably pull that filter block out because we're probably want to run something through that and make sure that's all cleaned out and the fittings are all clean. And then we'll be replacing the filter as well. So we'll tackle that next. Got a little glitter. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little bit on the top there. Not too bad though. Got another fresh one of these ready to go. I think that's everything to get cleaned up. Get all these fittings cleaned up, get those taken apart, flush some diesel through them, replace some O-rings, remove the rest of the hose, and I think we're ready for assembly. that cleaned up too. All right, so we got all our hydraulic fittings off for the right side and for the filter housing. I think next what we're gonna do is just get a container, put some diesel fuel in it, and let these parts soak a little bit, scrub them out, and then do one final flush with this, and then they should be ready to put back on there. Just wanna make sure we get all the metal out of these. This is everything that came out during the flush. As you can see, there was quite a lot of metal in there. I've got a magnet kind of tipping the fluid that way, is why it's all gathering there. But yeah, there was a couple of big pieces of bearing material. Quite the mess in that cooler. Now luckily, that's downstream of all the important stuff. So I'm not super concerned about there being little bits left in there. But I think we did a pretty good job. And then before I put everything back on, I'm gonna hook it up to the air hose and blow some compressed air through it as well. Okay, so here we are, all cleaned up. Ran some diesel through everything and then compressed air. I think everything cleaned up pretty nice. There was definitely some metal in a few of the fittings. There was a ton of metal in the cooler still. Here's a little bit of what came out of the cooler with the compressed air. There were some pretty serious chunks of metal that came out with the flush, but I think I got it pretty good at this point. I did a visual inspection of all the fittings and I couldn't see any flakes of metal hanging around in there. I think the compressed air got out any of the little bits that might have been still in there. And for the cooler, I'm not convinced I got everything out of that, but like I've been saying, it's downstream of everything important. So really all that happens is it goes in the cooler, out the cooler, into the reservoir where I'm gonna have magnets, and then back into this guy where it's gonna hit the filter. So probably not a big deal if there's some metal still in there. Next, we're going to put some new O-rings on these things, and then we'll start putting this all back together. And there you have it. All our fittings are installed, fresh O-rings, fresh pump, fresh wheel motor. Let's get it all back together. We'll get this secured back on. I decided real quick I want to get these on there because these are leaking when I turn this upside down. And I'd rather not lose all the fluid that's in there. There we go. Got our hydro pump mounted. All right, so I think I made maybe an error. I was trying to just set it up how it was set up, which I think I achieved, maybe. I don't know, but I don't like these fittings facing this way. It seems counterintuitive. So I'm gonna spin both of these around, and then I think I gotta spin this block around too. Okay, we have got our wheel motor installed, high pressure lines run, pump installed. Next, I think we'll get the cooler in, and then we just need to plumb everything up. All right, I think real quick, so it has time to settle, I'm gonna go ahead and back this fitting off and put some fluid in that pump. Okay, that's good. Just spill that everywhere, I guess. That's wonderful. I guess it's pre-filled. I might turn the pump by hand for a bit. Alright, so what I did there, I don't know if it was the ideal way of doing that or not, but I pre-filled it, but then I also kind of, I guess, primed it a little bit at the same time. Perfect. So I put a little oil on the top, which is the inlet side, And then I manually spun the pump over a little bit to pull some of that fluid into the system and lubricate the pump. So I think we're good now. I've got it in the bypass position, or the freewheel position, I guess, whatever you want to call that. So now this should be good and pre-filled, and it probably got some to the wheel motor too. So now I think we're probably good to go ahead and plumb everything. And then I'm gonna double check all my lists. We'll have to get this hooked up so we can cycle it, but I think we'll be able to plumb it and bleed it, which is exciting. GoPro battery's dying. I don't have much left. I'll show you real quick what I'm gonna do, and then I'll pick the camera back up when I'm ready to do the bleeding. Just need to lock these in so this is secure. Reconnect my hoses here, my supply line, my right side supply line. I need to plumb this back to the reservoir. I need to plumb one of these to the reservoir and the other one to the outlet of the pump, and then we'll be good to go. Stay tuned. We'll get all this plumbed up, and then it'll be time to run this thing. All right, so we ran out of time and GoPro battery yesterday, so we didn't get a chance to bleed and test the new system. But we got everything together. We got the pulley on there, got everything plumbed up, the reservoir is full, and I did bleed it on the starter for a minute, but I have not actually started the engine up yet. So right now, we're going to grab our wheel hub, get that reinstalled, push it out of the garage, and then start it up, bleed the system on jack stands, and then go from there. Smart in here. All right, should be bled. So I'll just top off the oil. I think it's 3 1/4 inches or something from the top of the fill line. It's probably that dot there, but I'll look that up real quick and we'll top it off and then drop her down and see if she drives. we go. Back up and running and ready to cut some grass here in a few weeks. Probably not too soon. It's starting to get a little warmer out, so I'm sure I'll be needing to cut some grass soon. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Keep an eye out for new content. I got no shortage of projects coming up. Sorry for coming into this kind of halfway through. I didn't get the idea to start filming this until I had already drained the system and taken the pump off. If you have any questions about stuff I did during this project or things I didn't show in the video, like removing the pump, feel free to drop a comment and I'll hopefully be able to help you out. Otherwise, keep fixing stuff and I'll catch you in the next one.